we added something like, I think it was 20 million people to the rolls of Medicaid over the course of the pandemic, because nobody
Mhm.
was getting kicked off
Right.
of Medicaid, and basically all the restrictions were relaxed, and now we're allowing the states, because the COVID restrictions have ended, to kick people off, and that's what's happening. We've had maybe a million point five kicked off in the past 2 months, and the anticipation is that and we could be kicking off anywhere from like 4 more million up to 24 million kicked off the rolls. A lot of people, incidentally, too, who are getting kicked off actually are eligible but don't realize it, and aren't filling out the paperwork. But between that and the thing that really drives me nuts, maybe even more so, is during the pandemic, we cut child poverty by 40 to 40, I don't know, 47%, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
We did it in a year. We just cut child poverty. And then we decided as a country, yeah, that was a fun experiment. Let's
Mhm.
go back to the way it was. And we did that by, providing $300 per child, per household per month,
I know. I
for a
missed
year or
it.
two. And I
I really
mean,
tried to get pregnant to get it, but yes, I missed it. No, and now we're deciding that was enough. Um, go
that, I
back to
mean, it was,
poverty, child. Go to work. In fact, we're going to
and
lower the working age for you.
it was Mansion and Cinema, really, who made sure that didn't happen in the in the I guess the so-called IRA or whatever could have been Build Back Better. But you think about how often that is mentioned on the nightly news, or by Democratic politicians, or by anybody who supposedly cares, and it's amazing to me.
Yeah.
Like, we cut child poverty by nearly half almost overnight.
Yeah.
And then as a society, we're just like, okay, whatever. And let's just go back to the way it, like, child poverty. It really doesn't get sort of more low hanging fruit than child poverty. Like, are you for or against child poverty? Like,
Yeah.
even the scummiest of the scummy right wing conservatives would have to go like, well, yeah, no, I'm against child poverty. I mean, and yet we as a society, we figured it out. It turns out you just give people money and then they're not poor anymore. And then we decided, okay, whatever.
And it's not even really, the PR around it and the ability for the Biden administration to, sort of sing their victories or, name their victories and trot them out. Hey, trot out a kid with a full belly. Oh, isn't this great? Like, that also went away. And I'm not sure if it's because they knew they were going to eventually rescind it, or that they couldn't get through Mansion and Cinema to keep it going. And so they're too, chicken shit, really, to right, they feel embarrassed that they was rolled back, or or if it's just they're terrible on messaging. I remember, like years and years ago, I think during the stimulus, the Obama money and all the stimulus, right, all the the stimulus money that was spent after the Great Recession. I remember there was like, you'd have to dig to find articles on like, where did this money
Yeah.
go? Which bridges did it build? Who did it help? And after I lived in Argentina, which I have to mention every single time if you know me, I lived in Argentina for many years, and it was interesting the way that the government would use, sort of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, or for lack of better, the public airwaves, to sing like, hey, we just built a sewage system up in this random province, and we did this, and your tax dollars hard at work. Bye-bye. You could call that propaganda. You could call that effective governance of actually telling Americans where
Right.
their money went during the biggest crisis of our lifetimes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Biden administration probably, didn't want to tout it too much because it went away. But and they may have anticipated part of the problem. I mean, part of the problem why it went away is probably because they didn't tout it as much when it was happening.
Right.
But we didn't have the data to see exactly how effective it was going to be. But in many respects, I blame the media too, to a certain extent, because I mean, the we still, there is still such a huge tendency with the corporate media to revert back to its sort of old, to revert back to the mean, and the idea that, it is not brought up on a consistent basis gives you a sense of like who the, what the interests are of like our corporate news media. I mean, and as long as I'm bitching, the whole inflation stuff too, like it's so clear that it was such bullshit about being a function of the money that was put into the economy, as opposed to sort of like corporations price gouging. And there was also obviously logistics, and I'm sure to some extent, and also a mismatch of supply and demand because people's habits changed. But the main drivers were not, I mean, we put trillions of dollars into the economy in an incredibly short period of time. And the inflation that we have is, as you can see, is cooling. That money hasn't gone magically away. The inflation's cooling because logistics have returned. It doesn't cost you $22,000 anymore for a shipping container. And, corporations are starting to get the message that people are sick of the price hikes. And so,
Right.
but okay, that's it. I mean,
No, it's good.
I about too many things.
The last thing I'll say about the Medicaid stuff is I did try to cover Medicaid. I mean, I did cover it on my one MSNBC special about the lack of expansion. I mean, the lack of Medicaid expansion in all these red states that are now, I mean, you have to get a waiver from the government to not expand Medicaid and help hundreds of thousands of people in your state, millions of people. And every single day, that's what red states are doing. And the Biden administration and the corporate media, they don't talk about that. They're not talking about how bad faith these, governors are when it comes to their own population, their own civilians, their own voters. In terms of like, they could be helping them every single day. And these are the folks who are trying to force birth on moms or on women across the country. And they're like, oh, we'll have some more Medicaid. We'll dole out some Medicaid. Oh yeah, how's that Medicaid going? Because there's 90% of it could be covered right now by the federal government. You just don't expand it because it was called Obamacare for a little bit of time. Anyway, yeah, it's a good thing to bitch about all this stuff. We could have had a good country, it's been real. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.